This is the Highly Sensitive Person Podcast, a weekly podcast for people who experience the world brighter, louder, and more intensely. Join me on a journey of acceptance of our highly sensitive person traits. Welcome to episode 26. I'm your host, Kelly. In this show, I share what it's like to be a highly sensitive person, or another way to say it is that I have high sensory processing sensitivity. I'd like to say we experience smells, feelings, emotions, sounds, in the world 10 times more intensely. Before I get started today, I'd like to share a comment on the blog from a reader named Margie. She writes, I'm 56 years of age and have been soul-searching for years, trying to understand why I feel so deeply, have empathy for others, cry easily when I talk about emotional subjects, positive and negative. I'm very creative and love learning. However, I get overstimulated and end up doing too much. Finding out I am an extrovert HSP has been life-changing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Margie, and I'm sure some of the listeners out there can relate with your comment. Today I want to talk about caffeine and a little bit about drugs. I used to be ridiculously sensitive to caffeine, but it has gotten a tiny bit better over time. In the past, having one cup of coffee could make me feel terrible for hours and hours. I mean, like all day. And then there would be times I would forget how much it affected me and I'd order a latte at a cafe or something. I'd drink it really slowly, but I still felt the effects quickly. I can't really explain how it feels, but I hate it. It's like this nervous, anxious, awful feeling right in my chest. And my hands might feel shaky or be shaky. It's like I feel like I can't breathe as deep. But I do feel more focused sometimes, and I'm able to work harder and faster for a while, which is helpful, obviously. It's kind of like I'm discovering what everyone already knew about coffee. I mean, that's why people drink it, right? For that little buzz. So why does caffeine affect highly sensitive people more than others? I'll tell you what I found from a little research. Caffeine and anxiety are linked because the boost we get from caffeine is caused by an increase in our heart and breathing rate. Those are the same reactions as the fight or flight response that kicks in when you feel danger. And since caffeine stimulates your nervous system, you might get those drug-induced tremors that make your hands shake. Also, caffeine prevents the natural absorption of catecholamines, of which adrenaline is one. So it lingers in your body. So if you have caffeine, it means that adrenaline will stay in your body longer. HSPs don't normally need stimulants because we're continuously in a fight or flight mode. We are aroused enough already. Stimulants like caffeine can cause overstimulation and actually hurt our performance sometimes. For me, the effect of caffeine lasts all day long, and it definitely keeps me from sleeping if I've had it too late at night. I've been really curious about how other drugs affect HSPs. Elaine Aron says that high sensation-seeking HSPs are known to enjoy trying recreational drugs. I've tried to do research on HSPs and recreational as well as non-recreational drugs, and I haven't had that much luck. I've heard some HSPs say they enjoy the relaxing effects of a drug like marijuana, and others say that it's too overwhelming, it makes them too anxious or paranoid. I've also heard HSPs say that they're very sensitive to over-the-counter drugs like traditional painkillers or antihistamines like Benadryl, for example. I am insanely sensitive to Benadryl. I can't take it without falling asleep, but I assumed it was because I'm kind of a small person. So whether or not drug sensitivity is part of HSP, I can't say for certain, but it's interesting to ponder. If any of you out there know of any research about this topic, please let me know. I also have a theory about mitral valve prolapse, which is a common heart disease that affects women more than men. Several years ago, I kept getting this feeling like my heart was kind of fluttering or double beating. I had a bunch of tests done, and it was determined that I have mitral valve prolapse, or MVP, which is a really common heart disease. It's not a big deal in my case. But the bigger news was that my doctor told me to try avoiding caffeine to see what would happen. So I stopped drinking soda and coffee, and like flipping a switch, the heart fluttering stopped. I was amazed. When doing some research about MVP and caffeine, I came across a list of symptoms of MVP that sound an awful lot like HSP symptoms, and I wondered if there's a connection. Some of them are hypersensitive startle reflex, a sensitivity to drugs, including alcohol, caffeine, and medications, and even panic attacks. Digging a little deeper, I found a mention on Dr. Elaine Aron's website about how people with MVP have traits similar to HSPs. She says that she believes the hearts of HSPs are different than non-HSPs, and highly sensitive people are more aware of their heartbeat, which I bet many of you can attest to. I know I can. She says it may be that MVP develops when sensitive hearts have to cope with a great deal too early in life. And if you go to websites about MVP run by people who have it, much of what they write about reminds you of things that HSPs write about. I'll have a link to Dr. Aron's blog post about this topic if you want to read more about it in the show notes at highlysensitiveperson.net/episode 26. So I wonder, those of you who identify as highly sensitive people, do you get heart flutters? Have you been diagnosed with mitral valve prolapse? How are you affected by caffeine or other drugs? Let me know in the comments at highlysensitiveperson.net/episode 26. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you like the show, please say thank you by leaving a positive review on iTunes. I really appreciate it. Talk to you next Tuesday.